web merchants can use to drive conversion. My name is Madeline Ng, and I'm a product marketer at Bloomreach. Today, we are very excited to be joined by Dallin Brinkman and Brian Beck. Dallin is a 15-year internet marketer extraordinaire. He's currently the Senior Manager of Site Optimization and Mobile at Lamps Plus, owning on-site performance, A/B testing, and mobile experience for Lamps Plus families of sites. Lamps Plus is a 30-plus year, for the last 30 years, has been the nation's largest specialty lighting store. We are also joined by Brian Beck, who is the SVP of E-commerce and Omnichannel Strategy for Guidance. Brian has served in e-commerce for the last 16 years, including serving as the Vice President of E-commerce for PacSun and Harbor Freight Tools, as well as COO of OvernightPrints.com. Guidance is a 23-year-old digital and e-commerce strategy and tech development firm, enabling retailers, brands, and B2B companies to drive rapid revenue growth, efficiencies, and to create more competitive advantage. Guidance works with brands such as Foot Locker, Burlington Coat Factory, Tom's Shoes, and Charming Charlie. We are very excited today to have Brian talk about the market context for what is currently the challenges that web merchants are facing, while Dallin will share specific tactics on how he has driven success for Lamps Plus. Before we go into the content, just a quick reminder. Please use the Q&A box within the webinar to ask questions throughout. We will have a Q&A session at the end. Brian, take it away.
So, good morning, everyone, and happy holidays to you. My name is Brian Beck. I'm going to start our discussion today by providing some context for the web merchandising function. Dallin's going to take us then into some specific tactics that are bearing fruit for his team at Lamps Plus, and then I'll finish this out with some key takeaways. I expect that many of you guys listening in today are web merchants, e-commerce managers, directors, VPs of e-com, or others involved with digital marketing at your companies. And having managed and sat in your seat for a number of years, overall e-commerce and also web merchandising organizations in a variety of categories over the last 15 years, including in categories such as apparel, hard goods, personalized products. I've really seen firsthand the evolution of the web merchant's role and really the expansion of the impact this role has on the customer experience across all channels and really by extension then the overall enterprise. And so ultimately we hope our discussion today gives you some overall strategic understanding of the evolution of this function as well as some tactical takeaways you can use to make immediate impact and get ready for 2016. I'll probably chime in a few times while Dallin's speaking and hope that he does the same to make this really productive discourse for all of you listening in. So while I'm rambling on here, you're probably wondering what the heck this slide is sitting in front of you. What we have here are two job descriptions, and as you look at each role, you'll notice really they're identical. Give me my equal sign, there it is. So I'd like to challenge you to place a job title underneath each of these. And while you're thinking about that, well, I'll tell you that one is a CEO and the other is a web merchant. They're not equal. So when you take a high-level look at the responsibilities of the web merchandiser, you can see that they touch many aspects of the customer experience and even have responsibilities that reflect the overall business management of the function. The web merchant's responsibilities are really remarkably similar to the CEO of a typical retailer. Both roles need to do things like create connections between product and customer, nimbly read and react to market trends, understand the customer, manage the profitability, quickly interpret data, and then drive functional, cross-functional collaboration. However, the experience levels are just a bit different for the people filling each one of these roles, and comp's also a bit different for the CEO, millions, and for the web merchant, sorry guys, not millions. So for the web merchants on the phone, I'm sure this all resonates, not the millions part, although no reason not to dream, right? But the roles descriptions. So your job is more challenging than ever with more constituents, margin accountability, engagement metrics, and broad impact that reaches well beyond just the website of the business, which is the way it's you've traditionally worked your functionality or your role. So I'm going to go a bit more into this on the following slide. So really here we're talking about, in a sense, feeling around in the dark, and you're going to see with Lamps Plus, we're playing off words a bit here today. But today's web merchant is really a business owner, expected to be also a creative genius, a merchant, a storyteller, an analytical whiz, a politician in some ways, and a customer advocate. And you're also expected, of course, to be in a good mood about all this. Web merchants are really challenged to manage many aspects of the customer experience and expected to use both sides of your brain, both creative and analytical. And so we place people these roles as VPs and directors of e-com, digital, and marketing. And the folks in the roles typically have 2 to 5 years of experience and usually only trained in one aspect of the role, which is normally the merchandising or creative side. Don't usually have formal training in analytics or margin management. And so we need to recognize these new pressures as managers of these functions and the expanded roles that these team members are in, and really rethink how we're setting them up for success. So web merchandising is really at the forefront of what I like to call the retailer's war on markdowns. Retailers are working hard to engage customers and drive sales with tactics other than price cuts, promotions, and other discounts that cut into gross margin. To the right here, you see a snapshot of last year, how we were trying to do this at PacSun when I was running e-commerce there. We were looking to engage with customers using in-depth product stories, things like videos, and mobile-optimized experiences delivered via the mobile site, mobile app. And by leveraging the customer's desire to be cool and relevant to their social circle, we were able to really drive more sales out of our new arrivals and reg price items. We also do this work at Guidance. We have a strategy consulting team that's dedicated to helping retailers that are looking to more effectively engage customers across channels and really connecting with them, with their customers on the new front door to their business, which is digital and particularly mobile. And really what we found is that by understanding the customer journey and applying relevant experiences, some retailers are doubling their category comps in target categories, including in stores. We're seeing companies like Guess, New York & Co., and others move to specific deals versus mass store-wide promotions, so category-specific promotions versus the mass site-wide promotion or store-wide promotion. Other companies are implementing personalized pricing, which is really tailored to specific shoppers' purchase preferences. A number of folks use loyalty program data to deliver time-sensitive, often app-based delivered promotions tailored to a specific shopper. And alternative channels, even such as outlet and zero markdown stores, are also being used. We did this at PacSun, and even Macy's has been rumored to be considering the idea of a discount chain. So, and then technology sort of sits at the bottom of this. 48% of companies are rolling out markdown planning and forecasting solutions. It's an increasing rate of folks who are really focusing on technology to enable this. And so web merchandising is really at the center of all this, facilitating the execution of all this and expected to deliver results. So, as I mentioned, today's web merchant is expected to be a politician, collaborating like an executive, considering all these different stakeholders. Here on this chart, we show the different constituents: digital marketing, brand marketing, buyers and planners, finance, and e-commerce, and they all have different digital focuses. For example, in digital marketing, the search rankings and SEO are critical, paid search. And there's a healthy tension here with these different constituents. For example, in digital marketing, category structures and keywords that are search engine friendly aren't necessarily the right brand descriptions on product pages. So there's a real balance here, and it really ranges by function. So with brand marketing, for example, it's about telling the story, but not necessarily being, but the merchant has to balance that against conversion-driving goals. For buyers and planners, it's about featuring new arrivals, making sure things are trend right. And for the web merchant, it's about making sure the proven bestseller and the sale items are also featured because they tend to drive conversion. Finance is looking at gross margins, but top margin items aren't always the best converting. And for e-commerce, of course, conversion rate and driving e-commerce sales. But again, the top converting features and products are not always the highest margin. So lots of different things to consider here in the web merchants world.
And Brian, to chime in here, I have meetings with all of these people every week in order to get sign off on anything. So there's definitely a healthy tension with all of these groups, and I have to make all these groups happy to accomplish anything.
That's right, and we did the same thing at PAX Sundell. That's a great point. Thank you. And it's really about process without being meetings to death, because there's a tendency to. And then we're all working until the wee hours of the morning, because that's when we have to get our actual work done. But so it's a healthy balance there too, just in terms of how you manage these things. Make sure your meetings that you have, you have a clear goal, and I like to make them standing meetings, so don't let people sit down. All right. So web merchants these days are pressured to support in-store sales, particularly obviously for multi-channel retail. And that's because the impact digital has on in-store is really huge. This is a study here by Deloitte Digital and Shop.org. And what it shows is that web's impact on store sales is growing dramatically. And particular note here is the huge impact of huge growth of mobile. So if you look to the right here, 28% of digital influence on in-store sales comes from mobile, and almost 50% if you add those two together. So there's really a tremendous amount of impact here. I spent a lot of time with multi-channel merchants trying to help improve their digital engagement with the customer, and the crazy thing is that many web merchants don't review their work on mobile devices before the changes go live on the site. I joke with a lot of merchants we work with that we're going to take away their desktop computers and laptops and make them do all their optimization work on their smartphones. And the point is that most web merchandising is still done on big screens, and really this is a change of mindset is necessary. Who are actually, for those of us who are advising or in the trenches deep in our retail websites, you got to look at how the stuff shows up on mobile. So it's really a shift in mindset.
And Brian, to add to that, with our company, we're actually paying a lot of attention on how in-store is actually driving mobile, because a lot of times what we're having is we're having customers in-store with their mobile devices, and it's, well, okay, well, you don't have the product in stock, I'm just going to buy it here. So how do we facilitate that and make it a smoother process for our in-store people to encourage purchases anywhere?
That's fantastic, and there's some great market examples. For example, Neiman Marcus is doing some things to that point where really about clienteling in store as well through their mobile app. So there's someone adds, creates cart or shows expresses interest in products on the web or on the mobile device. The in-store piece, the actual representative in the store actually is notified when they come into the store. The customer comes into the store and they really ties the experience together. So it's really exciting. Great point, Dallin. Thanks. So the bad news, guys, first, and then the good news, is we've got less time than ever, right? So consumer attention continues to decline. This is versus 6 years ago. Average time on the site down 30%. Average page views down 45%. That, by the way, means we may be getting better at getting the customer the right data quicker. Which is good. Bounce rate's up 35% versus 22% 6 years ago, but there's some good news. Consumers are more likely to buy online. Online ordering sessions are double, and well-optimized site search converts 4.7 times higher than visits without search. Got to get a good search tool in there, even though it's often not a majority of your site visits. It can contribute considerably to your online revenue and your offline revenue. So to that point, 93% of those who research on mobile end up purchasing in a physical store. So mobile is really exploding. So to address that short attention span, merchants, you can go ahead to the next slide. Merchants are changing their web assortments constantly, and product life cycles have compressed, particularly in categories like fashion. So what happens with the short attention spans is it creates high retailer uncertainty and a drive for a need for speed to market. So, for example, in fast fashion products, on average, live only 10 weeks on the site. Something like 40% of apparel merchants have reduced their product development time over the last 5 years. A good example of this is Zara, where 85% of their in-house production happens after the season starts. This is also manifesting an extreme seasonality where assortments are changing every 8 to 12 weeks. and new product features and stories hitting the homepage of a website, sometimes 3 times, up to 5 times or more for some merchants. We actually did a survey of apparel retailers when I was at PacSun last year, and the pace of mobile homepage feature changes was consistent amongst really all the category leaders, anywhere from 2 to 5 times a week. For the web merchant, this means that they are merchandising more products faster than ever before and creating experiences to support that those products. So it's really it puts a lot of pressure to be nimble on that function. So to top it off, the web merchant then has to deal with an enormous amount of data. You've got everything from web analytics to survey tools, competitive analysis tools, marketing channels, e-commerce platform reporting, BI tools, industry reports. You're really buried. So, and as most of you can probably contend, getting data these days seems to be the smaller problem. The issue is, what do you do with all the data you have? How do you extract what is meaningful to make the difficult decisions? And the problem is quite acute for web merchants that are in the trenches. Most web merchants don't have formal training on web analytics or other types of data analysis. They're highly reliant on a web analyst or business intelligence analyst to measure and interpret data. But then the analyst is disconnected from the day-to-day to some degree of what the merchant's doing. So it comes back to what and how to ask for information, which the web merchant also is not trained in. So it's not necessarily a recipe for success. I have seen it work, but it takes a lot of real training and process. What our clients are dealing with this in a number of ways. One is to provide some level of training and analytics to the merchant teams. We've seen that have some success, so that merchants are actually self-serving. We're also seeing retailers adopt tools like Bloomreach's Compass tool, which simplifies the process of sorting through and interpreting data and creates actionable insights around things like which products to include in which categories in what order, like what products to promote together. We actually deployed Compass at PacSun last year, and our clients overall are seeing a nice boost in conversion. Remember, you have less time than ever to engage a customer, so surfacing the right products more quickly is really critical, and that's where we found some value in Compass. So that's kind of some framework for you. I'm going to turn this over to Dallin now to get into some of the specific tips to drive conversion. Then I'll wrap us up at the end. Dallin.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, for sure with us, I was just looking at that slide, realizing that I have about 10 different ways to look at the same data. And what it really comes down to is when I can have a way that gets it to me quickly and easily, it makes it a lot better. And that's actually one of the reasons why we actually subscribe to Compass, is because not that I couldn't get a lot of this information elsewhere, but it saved me hours to do it, to just pull it straight. So I want to go over the 5 tips that drive conversion. And I'm going to go over each one of these. But the first one I want to focus on is adapting your taxonomy to your users and trends. So for us, taxonomy is basically how you categorize your product. And we've paid a lot of attention to this because categorization is something that we found can make a huge difference. So if you were to go to our website, you're going to see that some of our product is actually organized by type, so it's a different type of lamp. Whereas like our furniture, we put a lot of emphasis on room because people tend to start their shopping journey by saying, I want furniture for this particular room. And so we're making these decisions all the time. Which way and what approach should we use to categorize our product? So one way that we focus on doing this is by using Google's search volume within AdWords. You go ahead and go to the next slide. And within AdWords, we actually pay attention and say, okay, well, what exactly is it that is the most popular way that people are actually searching on Google for this type of product? Now here with this example, we have this debate going on whether to use bathroom lighting or vanity lighting. They're technically actually the same thing, not that I knew that before I started this job, but we had to make this decision. Well, we should stick with bathroom lighting because it's the most important. But lately what we started to notice is that we're starting to pay more attention to trends. You can go to the next slide. And if you actually go to Google's trends, you can actually compare 2 different types of searches right next to each other and compare their search volume. For us, we're still sticking with bathroom lighting here, but we're paying really close attention to vanity lighting because vanity lighting is actually becoming more and more popular, as you can see. fact, this past month, you can see it jumped a lot. So for us at this point, we're probably not going to reorganize our taxonomy for vanity lights, but we're going to seriously start thinking about incorporating those words into the page because people are definitely searching on that product. But we realize that we're kind of limited here with this, and so what we've decided to do is we're actually starting to go in and actually look at trends in our own. And it was actually Bloomreach's Compass that turned us onto this because they actually show this data really easily and make it so that I don't have to actually measure the trends myself. But what we found is that there are certain trends that are more particular to us because of who we are as a bathroom lighting or as a lighting company. There are certain things that are more popular that to our users than they would be to the general public. And so you get a bit more personalization to our users. So we focus on search volume, but at the same extent, we've noticed that because we're a visual company, our search volume isn't that great. But we still find that we get trends that come up and get more and more important that we haven't actually incorporated into our taxonomy. Recently, we actually have started to notice that the term industrial lighting, everyone's liking those basic Edison bulbs and things like that, is becoming more and more popular on our site. And while it's becoming more popular in Google too, the searches for it in lighting are huge on our site. And so we've actually gone and incorporated that into our taxonomy now because it's so important. So focusing on your categorization and making sure it's important and reflecting what your users are looking for is providing huge benefits for us. We're seeing our conversion rates have jumped 20% across the board this year with that.
Hey Dallin, it's Brian. Just a quick one other thing to add to that. Just as you're thinking about making these changes, one of the things we recommend is that you also make sure that you've tagged your navigation and other site elements. So that, for example, on your site navigation, your mega navigation, if you tagged it for analytics, you can then track the clicks that it generates, and really that's a measure of the interest level and how effective you're being, and it also allows you to prioritize things there. What I've noticed is that small changes in navigation, because it's one of the top finding path methods, can have a very product finding methods can be a very impactful approach. And it sounds common sense, but I still find a lot of retailers that aren't following that. So anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our next point. So decrease user friction. So if any of you have been to a conference this year, you're going to see this word friction. And it's basically this idea that there are points along a user's journey, once you map it out, that are actually much harder for users to overcome. And a lot of these don't actually show up on analytics because they're not deal breakers. They're just slowing the user down in their journey. Think of them as kind of like speed bumps. There's things that make the user slow down and may not necessarily prevent a conversion right there, but the sum total of them actually could. So one of the things that we did is when we actually looked at this, we found that there was friction with our users when they went from mobile to desktop. And we found that actually we estimate about a third of our traffic now is actually going from starting on our mobile device and then wanting to go over to desktop to complete their purchase. Well, the question is how easy is that process? How easy is it to go from mobile to desktop? And what we found is it's not that easy at all. We have the same category organizations and everything, but your desktop site looks completely different than your mobile site. Think about it, on our mobile site, we have products on our sort pages listed 2 across, whereas on our desktop, it's 4 across. So if someone starts and says, I like this product and I found it in this sort, and then they go to the desktop, the sort's going to look totally different for them, and how they find it becomes a challenge. So this is something that you're not necessarily going to see automatically from analytics, but if you start tracking journeys, you're saying, okay, well, what can we do to make this process similar? What if a user has a product that they know for sure that they want to buy, but they just don't feel like filling out the form on mobile? How do you make it easier to go over to the desktop? when we did this and we mapped this out last month, we found that if someone wanted to add a product to a wish list to get over to desktop, it was actually really challenging for them to do. And so we're in the process of actually streamlining that to make it easier for a user to go from a mobile device and say, hey, if I want to purchase this product on desktop, I can just do a really quick add to my wish list. It's going to ask me 1 or 2 questions, very quick, but I can get it over to my desktop really easily. So the second thing we've been focusing on, though, is even bigger because we're finding that our mobile users are actually using their devices in the store. And this is where your web analytics drift off because this is the offline nature of it. You know, how do we try to help the user out from the point at which they think they want a product to the point at which they open the box from delivery? So what we found, though, is in our stores, it actually is a big deal because a lot of users actually come into our store and they're saying, hey, I want this product. It's on your mobile website. I want to pick it up now in the store. Well, most merchants have way less products in their store than on their website because a lot of us do some drop shipping and things like that. So how do we make it so that the user who sees a product on our website can either be comfortable purchasing it on the website or in the store? And what we've noticed is that we need to make sure that our customer service reps are motivated and know enough about our mobile website to help the user out. And so we actually have changed our commission structure so that when our customer service reps help someone, if that person wants to purchase the product and it's not there in the store, they can purchase it online right there, and the customer service rep will still get the commission. And so there's this huge motivation for the customer service rep and a huge amount of tools for them to actually complete the purchase, whether it's online or whether it's for a physical product that's in the store right there. But the other thing we've noticed is that our email coupons are actually a real challenge for our customer service reps and our users. I don't know if any of you have ever gotten an email that says, hey, here's a coupon, go ahead and take it to the store. And then you take it to the store, and there's the guy behind the checker. He's got his barcode scanner, and he's torquing your phone in a weird position, trying to get that number, and it's never a pleasant experience. And so what they do is they usually just ho-hum and end up getting frustrated right in front of you, right in front of the user, and have to type in this code themselves. For us, what we've noticed is that it's even worse because our customer service reps don't like entering in our mobile coupon codes when they can just use their own authorization to give the discount themselves. So we've actually found that our email coupons are actually more popular, but they're also creating a point of friction for our in-store users. So those are a couple ways that we're actually aiming right now to prevent the friction, but there's tons of other ways. We're constantly mapping out new user journeys and new ways that we're finding that people are struggling on our website and in the store in that cross-channel behavior that's going on there. So what we've really discovered in the process, though, is there are a million different paths that users take, and the more we map out, the more we can identify places that can reduce friction, and the happier our users are about us, not only the company, but the product at the end.
And Dallin, that's a great point. Not to interrupt you, but one add to that. I mean, really, what we've seen is the way to kind of understand this is really to go to your customer. So we run. For example, we'll run customer research. We'll actually look at mapping those customer journeys across a set of different personas and really understanding what needs to happen at each of those points across the cross-device experience, and what does the retailer need to be doing at each of those points to drive conversion. And it's really incredible when you focus on that. The comps I mentioned earlier, you can drive significant comp growth in the categories where you're focused on the experience rather than just the transaction. Anyway, just a thought on how to approach that.
Yeah, we've definitely noticed as I mentioned earlier, our conversion rates have gone up a lot this year, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're just paying attention to where users are getting stuck in the mobile journey, or in the desktop and mobile, and where is it that they're having problems along the way. And we use a bunch of different tools for that, and we're finding that almost any way you look at it, you can always find places where people are struggling along the way. So let's go ahead and go to our next point. Presentation is everything. So as we map these mobile these journeys, we found that people want to be inspired about products. People want to know that this is going to look good in their space. You know, our product is very visual. There's not a lot of technical aspects. Fortunately, you know, it's pretty easy to turn on a table lamp. You know, you just twist the knob. So it's a very visual product. But how do we make it exciting for the end user? How do we make it so that when they hit our website, that they're interested in purchasing more? And what we found is one of the magic things we do is product imagery. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And I'll use this example. We were noticing our mirrors, which are a completely unexciting product in and by itself, is really uninspiring. Imagine that this picture on the left, and put it in a sort, and you have 30 products, 30 to 90 products that all look the same. The only thing that changes is the border around the edge. They're really uninspiring. And so we said, okay, let's go ahead and try and test a couple of products and actually put them in a scene. And so we introduced a couple of products in a scene, and we saw an incredible jump in conversion right there. But we can't put every product in a scene because we just don't have the time for that. And so what we decided to do is we said, okay, well, why don't we go ahead and put some products and just Photoshop them. So we took a picture of a background, took a picture of a couple of knickknacks to put on the table in front, and put it with this scene that's very simplistic, but gives an idea to the end user. And it was amazing to see the result. We saw an immediate increase in conversion, and we're up 30% since the time we started, 4 years, because we're just changing the backgrounds. So, but I'll give you a warning. The two things we've noticed is that changing product imagery can cost a lot of money. And we found the Photoshop way probably works better in a lot of ways than the actual in scene, and it is a lot cheaper. But we've also noticed that if we do the background images wrong, it can seriously affect sales. These mirrors, we actually put them on a wallpaper background first, and people said that people commented that it was the ugliest border for a mirror that they had possible. So we realized that we had to simplify the background. And so what we usually do is we usually start out with 2 or 3 products and just say, okay, well, we're going to put these products and we're going to see if they're clicked on more, then we're going to see if they're purchased more, and to see if it actually reflects a change. And when we actually see that it does, which 9 out of 10 times we've noticed it has, it's amazing to see the return on revenue. And seriously, all we're doing is photoshopping the background in, and it just makes a huge amount of difference for us in our conversion rates. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, number 4, identifying different landing page behaviors. So everybody tends to know about their demographics. You know, I can tell you the standard person that comes and shops at our website is not a teenage male. There's not that many males, teenage boys looking to purchase lamps. We definitely have certain demographics that fit our profile. But what we found is that if we took it another step further and said, okay, let's identify landing pages and let's identify the demographics and how they change per landing page. And what we found is that made a huge difference. We found that there are certain pages that affected different users differently. And what I found was that there were some that are kind of like a gateway to further purchases on our website. I don't know if you've ever worked on a project before, but I have this notorious problem that when I'm working on a project at my house, I'll go to the store, to the hardware store, purchase my items, and then go, and I'm all excited to work on the project, and then I get about 15 minutes in, and I realize I forgot something. And so I'll end up going back to the store, purchasing more product, and hey, you know, by this time I'm probably going to grab the red vines on the way out, and then going back and starting my project again, and realizing again that I have to go back, and I end up going back multiple times. So we like to call this the hardware store problem. And basically it's the idea that, hey, there are certain landing pages on our website that will result in multiple purchases over multiple sessions. And it's not just one session with multiple products, but people are coming back over and over again. And what we find is that there are certain products on our website and certain landing pages that follow this pattern. One of the ones that we found in particular that made a big deal was chandeliers. When we looked within our analytical programs, we found that chandeliers didn't have a high quantity per order, but it actually had a lot of multiple purchases after the fact. We found that if someone comes in, if they're going to buy a $4,000 chandelier, it is a signature product. And what I mean by a signature product is they're going to have this in the center of the room. People are going to see it. And so once they get that, they tend to actually want to start purchasing other products that match that look and feel, such as a wall lamp, such as a table lamp, different accessories that have the same look and feel. And so they come back to us multiple times. So having these and identifying multiple purchase sessions has led us to adjust our marketing and also how we approach these landing pages, so that we actually have a lot more repeat business than we ever had before. The other thing we pay attention to is what type of marketing segment that they come in on. There's a user, and we find that we have different user demographics if a person starts on mobile and goes directly to our desktop site. Generally speaking, we find that the younger the user, the more likely they're going to be willing to commit to purchasing the product straight on their mobile device. It's generally the older you get, more people who start on mobile want to go over to the desktop site to actually complete their purchase. Similarly, if you look at the one on the left here, this is the Google Shopping, and if you've ever Googled something, you can see that there's products that they introduce on top. Well, for us, we always thought that when a person actually was shopping this way, they were clicking on a product, so they actually would want to purchase that particular product. But when we did the research, we found that the demographic of those people actually skewed a lot younger. They were women within the 25 to 35-year-old range, and they were window shopping. And so they would go on Google and they'd look at products and they'd click on one and then come back out. But we also found that when people actually clicked on a product on our website, the product they end up purchasing, only 20% of the time it was that product that they originally came in on. And so we found that this group of women who were shopping were actually window shopping. And so this actually changed how we treated our landing page. So what we did was, instead of going from a product page and just showing one product, we shifted our focus, and so now these users actually land on a page that's actually a sort page with just the products highlighted on top. We saw our bounce rates drop 80% when we did this, and we saw our conversion jump 20%. It was amazing, the change. So looking for identifying your segments and identifying their user behaviors proved to be hugely valuable for us, and this is huge. Our product listing ads are now one of our best selling areas, just because of this change. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. The last point I wanted to talk about is identifying marketing channel behaviors, and I alluded a little to this in the last. But when we start analyzing our marketing channels and identifying multiple paths, we find that we get interesting user segments. For instance, if you're going from a social media person to an organic, we found that person tends to be a little younger than someone who actually just clicks on a paid ad. We actually also found that paid ads tend to be clicked on by slightly older folks than our organic ads. So that behavior changes, and when it changes the demographics, how we approach people landing on particular pages changes as well. Because we notice that some of our pages obviously have way more paid search traffic than others. But we've noticed that how we actually sort the product makes a big deal for what particular marketing channel. And so we pay close attention to how we sort product now, as opposed to what we used to do, which was just put the most popular up first. Because what we found is when users come into our website, they might have a niche product that they're looking for. And when we actually sort our products by most popular, we actually get one type of style that is way more popular. And so what we said is, okay, well, as we map the user journeys, when a user comes in, we're going to present them with a sort page that has a variety of content. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Because what we're finding is that users are looking for a product, and if they can't find what they're represented on in the top half of a page, they're not going to want to continue down. And so what we do now is we try to give a greater breadth of our product set, so that when users come in on a certain sort page, they can say, oh, you know what? They actually do sell a different type of lamp that I'm looking for. Because before, they used to always just look for one type. They used to always just see one type of product there because it was by far and away the most popular. So since we vary the products that we show on the top now, we actually say, okay, well, we're going to identify one. This is the most popular with this type of style. This is the one with this type of style. And we notice this actually in particular with this page here, which is our chandeliers landing page. Chandeliers happen to be one of our most important products. It's actually our best-selling product. And we found that when people came to this page, modern chandeliers are by far and away the most popular. But what we found was that there was a smaller niche, probably about a fourth of our users, that like these traditional styles. And so what we said was, let's go ahead and introduce a couple traditional chandeliers in the top 2 rows of our sort. We had them farther down the page, but because they weren't as popular selling, they got shut down further. So instead, what we said, okay, we're going to have some modern lighting, and then we're going to have some traditional lighting all in these first 2 rows. When we did this, we saw our bounce rates drop 77%. Conversion went up. It was a big win for us. You know, things like this were really hard for us to identify, but then when we actually got Compass, it was really interesting because you could actually see what people were searching on for these particular pages really quickly, and this actually opened a can of worms, and I'm happy to say I'm gainfully employed for a long time now because we're finding issues like this everywhere on our site. Okay? So those are 5 steps that we found that actually have moved the needle way more than anything else for us this year. And it's a huge project for us. We're actually hiring more people to handle these issues because the return on investment for us has been huge for all 5 of these points. So I'm going to turn this over to Brian and see if he has any comments or he can continue.
Yeah, I've got a few. Thanks, Dallin. That's just smart merchandising, and really to see those drops in bounce rate improvements and conversion is really astounding. I hope all of you on the phone are paying attention to this stuff because there's really good tactical, actionable things that Dallin's sharing. So I'm going to wrap us up with a few more slides and tie us together so you can hit the ground running in 16. So that's what really our theme is about today. So to effectively take action on trends in your taxonomy, our first point, we recommend installing a formalized process really to utilize on-site search regularly. You really got to review each of your devices independently and see what the behavior is. For example, at PaxOn, one of our top mobile search terms last year was the term jiggers, and we were scratching our heads wondering what the heck jiggers were. When we realized people were just fat-fingering the word joggers, which is one of our top-selling products, we redirected the search and saw a nice bump in conversion on that searches on that term. You've got to be diligent about this stuff, and it needs to be someone's job, or ideally split by category, or that your web merchants are responsible for to do this activity. It's also important to loop in your buyers and planners on this because this is good information in site search to inform buying decisions. And your taxonomy really needs to reflect what you're seeing there, and it's a living, breathing organism. It needs to evolve. Likewise, getting a tool in place such as Web Analytics, funnel reporting, or Bloomreach's Compass will help you to identify points of friction. This is point 2. And again, here you need to assign someone to do this and look at each device independently. So, presenting products properly really testing into different images, considering video if your product is complex. For example, when I was running e-com at Harbor Freight Tools, we implemented video on, gosh, probably 350 products and saw a nice lift in conversion on products that had these instructional videos on them, and it really helped the customer to engage and understand the product. But remember too, you don't have that much time to engage in the customer in today's impatient world. So matching your site experience to the incoming traffic source is important. That's number 4 here. Using tools like persistent banners to reinforce the messaging. Make sure, for example, if someone searches on a term, you can install that term into the banner and reinforce what the customer was looking for. The examples that Dallin gave around reinforcing the landing page, I thought the lamp example was a fantastic one, where you've got the search term at the top coming off of PLA and then a sort below. So it all sounds simple, but I'm amazed at how many retailers still send, for example, category-specific search terms to their home page. Go ahead and try it for yourself. Those of you on the phone, put your brand name in and type one of your category names and see if you're sending traffic to the home page or into that category. It's a basic way to start improving your relevancy of your experience. And finally, inspiring and instructing your customers by really matching experiences to personas. I mentioned earlier that guidance is one of our core practice areas, is helping retailers create those relevant experiences across the entire shopping journey, really doing the things that Dallin was highlighting. And it's a key component of this is really the digital marketing channels. So okay, web merchants, how do you use your experience? You can go to the next slide. Access to data, knowledge to create greater influence. How do you use all this to create greater influence in your overall organization? Well, you really sit at the center of a huge sphere of influence and power in your company. Remember that CEO analogy I made at the beginning? It isn't too far off. You have access to enormous amounts of data, and that gives you knowledge, which in turn allows you to influence your entire shopping journey and multiple touch points. And engagement is a key way to measure how effective you are across those touch points. And this knowledge will help you. So it's really, and your world is really much larger than it used to be. And go ahead and go to the next slide. So in 2018, which is 2-3 years from now, almost 90% of transactions will still be in store. Digital influence is 1.7 trillion of in-store purchases. We talked a lot about smartphones and how customers are using those for shopping, and really it's about shifting the mindset to mobile-first merchandising and making sure that's the center point, not the desktop. And so we really need to change our thinking as managers and web merchandising practitioners. So it's no longer just about online conversion metrics, particularly on mobile. The goals have evolved to meet cross-channel and overall brand objectives. So things like content and brand story engagement metrics, adding to cart, finishing on other devices, wish list features. Dallin mentioned, coupons, driving to store, and measuring results that way. We have a client we've run some campaigns with, company with about 400 stores, and just through holiday here, it's added. These campaigns have added over $1 million in revenue in store, and have also added quite a few thousands of new customers to the list. So by seeing how using digital marketing to drive store traffic is a really exciting way to close the loop. And that was through an affiliate program, by the way. And just some other pieces here, and you want to be testing to uncover store traffic. So, our key takeaways, and this is my last slide here, was web merchants, you're uniquely positioned to develop really a holistic understanding of the customer and support that overall journey. And then understanding the customer online really can translate to impacts offline. We talked about that, and then back online. So it's really it's not about channels anymore. It's about closing the loop on the experience, and really focus your understanding on the customer and reducing the friction are important pieces. And we call this all omni-channel experience optimization, and it really involves helping retailers understand every step of the journey by customer type and speaking to them in the most relevant way at each moment. And so web merchants are at the center of this, and they have a real-world impact, such as the 2x store comps I was mentioning. By beginning to focus on these areas and how they play into the complete omni-channel experience. And you can begin this journey yourself by just doing some of the things that Dallin was describing earlier. So that wraps our content, and we're happy to take some questions. We've got about 10 minutes left here, so we're happy to address any questions from the group.
Thank you, Brian, and thanks for a great conversation between you and Dallin on what's happening in web merchandising. Just as Brian mentioned, please go ahead and ask questions using the Q&A box that is currently located within the webinar screen. We've been receiving questions throughout this conversation, so just wanted to kick it off with the first one that we received. So throughout this conversation, Dallin and Brian, you've mentioned some tools. Could you go into a little bit more detail about which metrics or tools that you use to make these meaningful decisions?
I can take that, Brian.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Dallin.
So we have our basic analytical programs like IBM Digital Analytics, but what we find is that if you're looking to make user journeys, you have to look at two things. One is web merchandising tools, and the only web merchandising tool I've ever seen that works is Compass. And it's not that I can't get this information elsewhere, but Compass saves me hours upon hours of time to do it, so which is why I really like it. But we also find that there are things above and beyond that, like session recording, that we look at all the time that says, okay, well, let's record session journeys and see, well, where are people physically getting stuck? So there are two things I pay attention to. One is what people are getting physically stuck on, but also what people are using as alternatives to get out of being physically stuck. And when I'm looking for alternatives, Compass is probably the best approach. When I'm looking for things physically on page, I use a session recorder. There are a ton out there, and I keep seeing more and more that are really cheap. Yeah, I'd recommend it.
Yeah, Dallin, a second to follow on that. Yeah, usertesting.com is one that I've used, and you know, at the end of the day too, though, one of the things that's really impactful is just plain old customer surveying and just talking to your customer. So the tools are fantastic and they provide insights, but when you balance that with qualitative data from customers, you can pull some really fantastic insights out.
So Brian, we've been actually implementing voice of the customer tools that are doing exit surveys, because we're finding that our users don't like to fill out really long surveys. But if it's a one survey based on when they're exiting, we actually get a lot more information there very quickly and much more meaningful.
Yeah, we actually dedicated someone at PacSun to voice of customer and found some really actionable data out of that to really interpret that data. You have to put some people behind it too, right? That's what I've found.
Right.
Great. We just got another question. This is a question about SEO. So there are, from this caller or this attendee, they said there's whispers about Google crawling mobile apps to add content from apps into SERPs, so into search engine results pages. Should SEO and other optimization be unique to the app, or should it be the same as, such as optimizing for the web?
I'll take that. I would make it exactly the same, and I'll tell you why. When you think about it, if a user is looking to install and looking to actually have the app, that's generally your loyal user, but you do yourself a disservice by pulling people to your mobile app that may not necessarily want it. You think about it, that's a huge speed bump for someone to actually want to install a shopping app on their phone. I mean, you think about it on your own phone, how many shopping apps do you have, and how many do you regularly use? I mean, most people can usually say like one or two, but that's about it. So when you think about it from an app perspective, I don't want to push my app on someone unless I know that they're going to be a loyal user that's going to be a repeat customer purchasing over and over again. And so generally speaking, I try to encourage to get the easiest, quickest sale possible out of most people, because otherwise it's just not worth it for them to put the app on, and I'm making them do a lot for no particular reason other than to bump my stats that, hey, I have more installed.
Yeah, I would agree with all that, Del.
Makes sense. So another question that we just received is a question I think that, Dallin, maybe you could lead with answering. It says, what can web merchants do on an everyday basis to try and gain influence and knowledge?
To try and gain influence and knowledge. So web merchandising is one of those things I've just noticed that it's like any statistics. It's the data that you don't know about that is usually the stuff that's going to make the most important differences. And so I look at several things. One is I do a lot of competitor analysis to see how they're merchandising their stuff. Two is I spend a lot of time looking at our user searches and our user behavior to see what things are more popular and what things aren't. I pay a lot of attention into what things are being viewed a lot but not actually being purchased, and trying to figure out why. Those are areas that I spend a lot of time every day on to try and move the needle.
And being somewhat, being diligent about doing, periodically doing things like listening to webinars like this, or gathering information just from industry sources, and learning about. I always find it useful, for example, at conferences, to spend a lot of time interviewing different vendors in the exhibit hall to understand what kind of new innovative tools are also available to me as a merchant. So anyway, just a few additional thoughts there.
Just to throw this out there, I also like to hear stuff from vendors a lot. Like Brian would be a good resource, because in efforts to try and sell his services, he's going to usually give me a lot more information about how I can customize stuff on my website anyway. So.
For sure.
Just got another question that maybe, Brian, you can lead with answering. The question is, how can I most effectively create an online experience that translates well in stores or breaks some traffic in store?
Well, I think so there's two things there. The experience driving the store, I think really it's, to some degree, it's really unique for each retailer, and it really depends on what kind of what your core equity is as a retailer, and how customers relate to you. So we found this at PacSun, finding this with clients that we work with today here as we're multi-channel. It's about understanding the customer first and understanding what they expect from you. And so we've done some work with different retailers around interviewing customers, executing focus groups, but really not formal, stuffy focus groups, but really more informal, getting into the store and understanding how the customer utilizes their mobile devices, and even we ran a series of studies for a customer a client where we actually went, interviewed about 50 customers, about 20 customers in their homes, we have some resources that do this who are really great at this stuff. And it's really about first understanding your customer and what they expect from you at the different touch points. As it relates to digital marketing, driving a store, that is one of the hardest things to measure. I mentioned couponing earlier. That's an easy way to start. What we're seeing a lot of retailers do is we're actually run digital testing into different geo-markets. So you'll have a geo-market where you'll run a digital campaign through Google and Facebook and other places, and you'll have some holdout groups where you measure the impact to stores or potential lift from stores into stores in those 2 different or 3 or 5 different markets. And that's one way to do it. And Google's working really hard to try to figure this out, because they understand that a lot of their behavior is shifting to mobile searches, and they need to figure out how to tie that together to stores. So it's an evolving space. No one's got a complete answer yet, but really starting with the customer is where we recommend.
For sure, for us, we find that tracking mobile to in-store behavior is really a challenge. But one of the things we're focusing on is how do we make the online experience in-store better. So when a user actually comes to the store and they actually have like their mobile phone, well, how do we make that experience better? A lot of times what we find is that a user will come in and they'll say, I love this lamp, but I want it in a pink color or some random color. Well, we've been training our customer service reps, and we have kiosks throughout all of our stores now that we can say, oh, well, if you want that, we can just go ahead and order it right there for them. And so it's a pretty painless process right now. for us. But for sure, tracking is a huge issue.
God, I think a lot of people can empathize with that challenge. So we're coming right up to the top of the hour, and we're going to end the webinar now. Thank you, everyone, for attending and for your thoughtful questions. And big thanks to Dallin and Brian for your insights on how to make 2016 a big success for web merchants. On the screen, you have our contact information if you want to reach out, and we'll also be following up with a recording of this if you want to share this with your colleagues. Thank you again, and have a great morning.
Thanks, Madeline. Take care, everyone.